Hello, everyone. Thank you for tuning in to The First Pencil with Kathi and Mike. My name is Mike the Car Guy. With me, as always, you know what I'm going to say. Wicked awesome car gal, friend to horses everywhere, and my best bud, truly my best bud. I just love this is my favorite day of the week because I get to just chill out with my best friend. We get to vent all kinds of crap and get it off our chests, and we make each other laugh. And then we turn on the camera and we get to just talk about cool stuff.
Yeah, the venting, I would say the venting is the exclamation point venting. Yes,
It's therapeutic.
it is.
How are you doing?
Doing good, doing good, doing good, yeah, as I mentioned before we got on, I was awakened by I have an app on my phone called the My Shake app. Those of us in California here have to deal with earthquakes, but I've had that app for a couple of years now, and they were doing some kind of a test, and they tested it at 3:30 this morning. And it was a verbal. It said, no, what did it, something like, no need to take action. This is a test. I'm like,
this is a warning, a test. Yeah.
So I must have the notifications for sound on and not know it. So I've been up since 3:30. I couldn't go back to sleep because I at first I thought it was my home alarm. And whenever that happens and the adrenaline kicks in, you're stuck. You just might as well
Yeah,
find
you don't
something
just
to do.
kind of come out of a slumber and go back to sleep. It wakes you up. You're thinking, you're processing. What is this happening? What's going on? Is it
Yeah.
needing more attention? Yeah, so
And
going back to sleep after that can be tough.
you're fighting the natural chemicals that happen in your body. And it just, I tried. I certainly tried, but it never happened. So here I am.
And for anyone listening, today is October 19th in California. Today is the California Great Shakeout. It's an exercise that people participate in, where they raise awareness, because it's not a matter of if we're going to have an earthquake, it's just a matter of when we're going to have another earthquake here in SoCal. So it's a big effort, a media campaign to get people's awareness and remind them, the ground's going to shake, so be ready for it. So it's probably timed with the Great Shakeout, I would assume.
It must be, yes. And I'm
But then it
already
would be funny to get everybody up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. And another one came on. You heard it before we
Yes.
recorded, like an hour ago. I don't know. I was in the Northridge earthquake. We got hit pretty hard. We had a yellow tag, and I had earthquake insurance at that time. Thank goodness. I have earthquake insurance now, but it's way more money. Back then, it was my agent said, "Do you want earthquake insurance?" I'm like, "Oh, sure." She's like, "It's $3 a month, no big deal." I'm like, "Okay." And then turns out, a good thing, because we had to stay out of our building for like 3 weeks, and they paid for everything, and it was awful being in it, because 4:30 in the morning, I don't know why, because I was just talking about it the other day. But my husband he's not from California, so he was running around, and I'm like, "It's the big one, dude! It's the big one, dude! It's the big one, dude!" I kept screaming that. And thank goodness I had done I think it was a Monday that it happened, and I had just done some laundry the night before, and I didn't put it away, and so we had clothing that we could put on in the dark. Thank goodness, because trying to find, because the TV flew across the room. I mean, it was that bad. It
was the big one. For all intent and purpose, it was.
Yeah.
In our life, at least. I mean, I don't remember the 72 quake. I'm not going to pretend like, oh yeah, I was consciously aware of a giant earthquake in 1972. But that Northridge quake, even out here in the Inland Empire, was substantial.
And that was the other thing. I'm like, oh my God, if it was, because we ran out of the house, and there was our neighbors were out, and you're watching, the aftershock came 5 minutes after, and you're watching the asphalt roll, right, in the parking lot of where and this guy came out in a football helmet and an apron. That's all he had on. And a gun. And his gun. So yeah, you're sitting out there and you're like, oh my God, it's not it's just very surreal. So but I kept saying, oh my God, if it was this bad here, where how bad must it be at the epicenter? Meanwhile,
at the epicenter,
I was in Woodland Hills, right at the epicenter.
But I've always said that's part of for me, I like the not being prepared. Like people in the Midwest, I think, have it like that anxiety of, the little beep going off on your television, there's a tornado watching your area, and then seeing the screen and knowing that it's close, and feeling the air, and all that anticipation would freaking wreck me. Here
Yeah.
in California, you're just going about your day, living, and then all of a sudden,
Yeah.
oh shit, you don't have a chance to get anxious about it. It just happens. I'd rather it just happen.
Yeah. But you do learn like that. I learned a lot from that, from always never leave your gas tank empty when you drive in your garage at night. I never do that. I always make sure either I have gas or I fill up, because none of the gas worked. And we were barely able to make it because we lived in Woodland Hills. So we had to go somewhere. And I was working in Beverly Hills at the time, and that's like a 40-minute drive. So we stayed in a hotel on like Wilshire. And then I think we barely had enough gas to get there. And so that's one thing that I never forgot. I always now have the gas. But yeah, you're right. Also, like, if they're not too bad, you can be driving and not even know. So there's that too, right? Don't forget that. But nonetheless, it's not fun. It's not fun. But so that's what's going on in my world. What's going on in your world?
Well, I just came back from another conference, and I think, without getting into a bash session, I don't want to necessarily just dump all over anybody's efforts, but
Oh, but please do. Please go ahead.
I do think, we've talked for many years about the decline of the conference
Yeah.
as we know it, and I think we're past the actual acknowledgement that these are going south. The attendance is down. Before COVID, attendance was just gradually decreasing and decreasing and decreasing. It seemed to be the same group of people that went, the same dealers would go. There wasn't enough new blood. Everybody just kind of went because it was like summer camp. You get to see your friends, hang out, go to a party afterwards, do the schmooze thing. It just, and then COVID hit and everybody was locked out for 2 years. So, they opened the doors to a conference after COVID, and sure, it was pretty good sized crowd because everyone was just looking for something to do, to get out of the house, get out of their town. Oh my God, I can go to Vegas or Dallas or San Francisco. I can go someplace again. Let's go on. But now the reality is back, and this event had 149 dealers registered for the event, and when you looked at the vendors in the booths, there was over 500 vendor personnel. So it was really awkward. The differential was just so prominent. It was just vendor on vendor conversation, catching up, seeing what's up, checking out the pulse of the world around
And
you.
the vendor on vendor without building referral relationships, which was what drove me away, because I'm a big referring person. I like to refer people. I like relationships and building them, and I like so that I have something to fall back on. If I have a need for something, I can go to somebody that I trust instead of somebody that I don't know. And that it's funny because so I can remember in the days, because I used to speak at those conferences, as you know, and back in the day, I mean, there was like 1,400 that would be total that would go. And I would always be suspect, like how many really are dealers, and they would never be transparent about it. And now they're even less transparent. And now you're telling me, it's just not worth it. It seems like for the price that you're paying for the exhibit, you could turn that budget, even a portion of that budget, it wouldn't even be all that budget. You'd probably save money and get better marketing if you really focused on like the audience you really want to reach, because
Exactly.
it ain't there. It just ain't there. I'm sorry.
Like you mentioned before, just like if you were to run a webinar in conjunction with, one of the state vehicle dealers associations,
Exactly.
that was an educational format that give you a chance to expose yourself to a real specific targeted market. And it's a shame because like our friend Brent, we had I wish I could have. The thing that sucks about working a conference is being stuck in your booth and not being able to go out and do the fun stuff, as opposed to attending the conference. When I was in dealerships, I could attend it and go to the sessions and really get a lot of good information. Now I'm just kind of stuck in a booth waiting for someone to come by to talk to. I would have loved to have been in Brent's session where they had each table had kind of, the pro, right? And they were talking about using ChatGPT to work out like marketing strategies and, these type of things, how you could use it. So you had someone that was well versed with it sitting or, walking around the table with dealers that had their laptops open that were actually going through these things. So it wasn't like they had to take a note and go back to the dealership and try to remember it. What was that guy saying again? They were doing it. They were right there, hey, let's try this as a prompt. Let's see this. And I know a lot of people, just based on the feedback, their minds were expanded because they were like, I hadn't thought about giving that type of prompt to ChatGPT. ChatGPT, I hadn't thought about taking it in this direction. I've just been kind of narrowly using it for this, and I've been real good with it. But wow, that I can, experiment with it and try different things. So there was this, and Brent always does such a phenomenal job with his sessions, but there was only 149 dealers there. And I know a couple of dealers, and I'm probably guilty of this, but there was a couple of people wearing dealer badges that were vendors or were, not dealer personnel. Because I recognized a few people, then you look at their badge and, Joe Smith with ABC Motors. You don't work at the dealership. No, I just got a pass. So the number was probably closer to 120,
And dude, that just made me think of something. So if I'm Brent, or if I'm somebody that's, just thinking about how to reach people in a better way than an exhibit hall, put on something like that. It's smaller group, but it's hands-on. And you're right about AI. Yesterday, I was doing something I just wasn't happy with the way that a paragraph was written. It was an opening paragraph that I'm doing probably on my newsletter. Yeah, it was my newsletter. So I thought, okay, let me go to ChatGPT. And I'm like, oh yeah, but the magic is in the prompts, how you prompt it.
Right.
And I found this awesome article on Medium. This guy's called the AI Whisperer. And he said, don't use the word rewrite. And he had a list of like 31 words that the type of word, he said the word, and then it was like, if you want to get this result. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so helpful. Because that's really where the learning curve is. You can go on ChatGPT and
do you still have that? Can you send me the link to that?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'll put it in show notes too. It's super. He's on Medium. It's just great.
That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for. That's why I wanted to sit in on Brent's thing, because it's you don't know what you don't know. So saying, get creative with your prompts. That's a great idea. Now, what does that mean? How do I put that into action?
And if you're able to do that, that's reaching an audience that you're going to have much more meaningful engagement with than at an exhibit hall. And I know there's this whole, dyed in the wool, go to the exhibit hall and sell the product. And that works probably at NADA a little bit, I guess, but I bet their numbers are down too. But I just feel like if you had some kind of something around that scenario, like what Brent's doing, that would be much more meaningful and more memorable and helpful for sure, right? Because everybody, it seems like at dealerships want to know about it. They want to know about AI. So that's a good example of like a strategy that you could do rather than, listen, if you got millions and millions of dollars, like somebody like Reynolds and Reynolds, they're going to be there because they got tons of money. But if you're not that and you want to reach some closer, bring them closer to you that are going to be much more, I don't know, engaged with you and really more interested, then that might be an interesting turn of events. But like you said, a webinar is a good way too, and it's way less money. You're not going to sell per se, but you're going to build up to a sale. You can follow up.
I think if we took the same approach as we were always telling dealerships to take with their customers, right? Stop focusing on what can I do to sell a car today. Focus on what can I do to build my community. So it's not a matter of when they buy today or as much as where they buy. Establish yourself as that trusted figure. So whether they buy a car today, which is the goal, but 6 months from now when they're in market, you want them to know where to go. 6 years from now when they're in market, you want them to know where to go. That's, we focus that on dealers to consumers. We can focus that on business to business as well. Just create that established trusted resource and build your community,
Mhm.
so that when this dealership needs your service, they already have the trust, it's already kind of there. So it's just a matter of pursuing the relationship to see, oh, can we fit with this organization?
I mean, think about it. That model of going to the exhibit hall. I mean, didn't they show that in Mad Men? I think.
Yeah.
So that's the 50s, the 40s and 50s and 60s eventually. But I mean, it's that old of a model. It just, I don't know, but old habits die hard, as we know. So,
A lot of the attention, not it wasn't all bad. I'm not saying it wasn't. It's always valuable to me because I get to talk to other people in the
mhm.
industry and get a feel. We're seeing the continuation of that increase of focus towards the back end of the house, the fixed ops service, parts of service, because there's so many moving components going on in automotive that are really creating kind of a stranglehold, right? We have higher interest rates.
Mhm.
If a customer bought a car 3 years ago, they probably got 0.9, 1.9.
Mhm.
Now they're coming in 6, 8%. We've got tons of buried customers, negative equity. They owe far more than the vehicle's actually worth. There's all these things. Affordability is at its highest. It's not affordable. It's, monthly average payment is over $748 a month. All these things, the amount of 90 days or more lates on car payments in general is like almost at 1/5 now, is what the numbers are showing. It's crazy, the number of repossessions. Then on the other side, you talk about the actual business part, right? We shared an article the other day about a dealership being caught for using, government loans in an inappropriate manner. And that's really, I think, kind of the tip of the iceberg, because so many dealers did it. And now that they've gotten one to go for it, they're just going to start blanketly going after
Just to
everyone. As soon as you
elaborate
commit
on that a
one,
bit,
you're done.
uh, let's elaborate a little bit. The DOJ settled with a dealer group. It's called the Victory Dealer Group. If you want to look it up, it's readily available. But yeah, they took PPP loans, saying that then they didn't qualify. And it was for small businesses, and they're a large auto group. And I think it was the settlement. They ended it. I think they took out 6 point something million in PPP loans, but they have their settlement is 9 million, which is probably penalties and interest. But yeah, it just doesn't pay. So, and
But
likely
we're going to start seeing that in
yeah,
addition to
more of
what
that.
there's just so much compression going towards the dealers right now. It's going to be a really interesting time. It really, really is. And
Mhm.
I'm not being a doomsday sayer. I'm not saying, oh, that's signaling the end of the franchise automotive model. I'm not saying any of that, because we'll figure out a way to get through it, right? As an automotive industry, we've been through recessions, we've been through all kinds of economic crises, we've been through all of that. We'll figure out a way to move forward, but that doesn't mean that in the mix, it's not going to be difficult. There's going to be some difficult times.
Speaking of moving forward, let's talk about Threads and Twitter.
Yes. How is Threads moving
Oh,
forward?
by the way, Mike and I decided we're going to do every other week episodes. It's just getting too much to do weekly for both of us. We have a lot on our plates, and to record, it's a lot of work to do. So we like it, we like doing it, but we're just going to chill for a couple of, we might go back to weekly, you never know, but for now we're just going to go every other week. But yeah, Threads is becoming more popular. There's a big push to get a lot of because what drove Twitter was journalists, right?
Right.
And breaking news as well, but journalists helped in that. And so there's a big push to get journalists over on Threads. And there was even someone started an actual like post and said, if you're a journalist, put your name here and like what you do, and then that way people can follow you. And it was great. It got passed around, and I think they did a lot of really good work getting them over, because almost everybody's over that I still need to go to Twitter for they're mostly animal related. So I mean, Flacco, I have to go see Flacco,
Right.
Flacco,
The
the owl in New York City that escaped his zoo
Central
enclosure,
Park
and
Owl.
is living his best life right now in Central Park. And there's a couple of photographers that they're on Instagram, some of them, but not all of them. And so I still go to Twitter for that. And of course, Hana Lee is still on Twitter, so I'm going to do that. But my time on Twitter is probably 20% of what it was, and most of my time's on Threads. And I just
Oh,
wanted to
agreed.
mention,
I would say my time is like 5% on Twitter. I don't
yeah,
scroll.
maybe it's 5.
I'll do like the posts for the companies I still consult with. I'll
Mhm.
just to keep those out there for SEO and stuff. But I find myself not even scrolling. I'm not interested.
And I have a automatic posts of my some of my blog posts that I feel are still helpful, and some other things there that are still going. I may turn it off. I almost deleted it last weekend, but because it's like a moral thing, but part of it too is that you and I both are in this space, and we have a podcast, and I have a newsletter, and I need to be there to report a little bit, right? And so there's that too. It's not only, I'm not on there personally, right? It's as a business, business related. So, but I just wanted to say that Threads is doing a lot of really good, they're rolling out a lot of good updates. And the one that I think is really awesome is it's called Voice Threads. And you can just, when you want to reply, you just hit, I forget, it's like a little icon on the thing, and you
A
can,
microphone looking
little microphone, yeah. And then you just talk into it, and then it copies the text for you, but then it allows
like
whoever
voice
to
to text.
listen. And what's valuable to me about it is that you get to hear the person's voice that you've never heard before. I've been following somebody for 13 years and I've never heard their voice before. So it's I love the idea. I hope people use it so they keep it, because it's really awesome. So, but they've got editing already. Like somebody said, Threads has been up for 3 months, and it took like 15 years to get a edit button for Twitter, and you had to pay for it. But Threads has got it for free, and they did it in 3 months. So they definitely know what they're doing. Of course, it's Meta/Facebook/Instagram, but Adam Mosseri he used to be in charge of Instagram, and now he's in charge of Threads, and they have a good team. And I'm just,
And the usage outside of it, you and I've talked before, it's going to have a broader ability because it is open. So there's the
yeah.
future. I think is still really, really, really bright for Threads in its usage, and we'll see.
And Blue Sky is good as a platform, but Jack Dorsey is part of it, and I just don't. He has proven himself to not be the type of person that you would want to, that a good person would necessarily want to be around. So yeah, but I'm on all of them, but I like Threads the best. So anyway, I just wanted to.
I find myself like checking out new platforms, and then if it doesn't kind of grab me real quickly, it's still an active app on my phone. I can log in, but I just find myself not.
Yeah.
Whereas Threads, I do find myself replacing that time, and over time, I see it taking up that gap. Twitter for me solidified itself as a news source, and it's in a bad way. But remember a few years ago, in Las Vegas when they had the shooting, I actually it was late at night, and or late-ish, I was in bed, had the TV on, and I was scrolling through Twitter because I wasn't paying attention to what was on TV, and that's when I started seeing things, and it made it easy to search it and find out. And I was seeing all this, and because I'm like most humans, you're curious, you try to find something on the news. There was no breaking news, nothing. It was silent, and I'm like, how the hell is this not getting coverage? Because then once it hit, it just blew up, and it was all, I mean, oh my god, the information that was coming out of Vegas was overwhelming, and it was hard to know at that point, what's really going on. Oh my gosh. But it was just really weird to me, the difference between media and Twitter. It took hours before there was any kind of breaking news, and even then it was real ambiguous. There's been a shooting. Well, what, I already know pretty much what went down. And for me, it was like, holy shit, this is a really, really powerful way to get information out quickly in a case of emergency, in a case of a natural disaster. It's just such a powerful tool, and that's what kind of made it heartbreaking to see what Elon has just destroyed in it. It's
Yeah,
taken
you can't
away
do
that.
it. Like I can't tell you how many times I see on threads people saying that it's just it's beyond bad. And with the war, with the Hamas and Israel situation, that was the true test to see how bad it's gotten. And not only did the truthful stuff not happen, not like the way that it did with like the example you used with the shooting, but just tons and tons of misinformation. Obviously, there had been some planning, right? But there's no, Twitter doesn't have any now. He fired the whole trust and safety team. He completely, the guy that ran the whole, he fired him. He started out liking him, and then he fired him and called him a pedophile. And then that guy has had to move a couple times. He had to sell his house, and it's been awful. And so there's no moderation, there's no trust and safety going on. And it's not just the misinformation, it's also horrible videos. Horrible. I'm afraid, like I'm very afraid of even
Yeah, I don't want to see it,
scrolling,
so I don't even scroll. I just
right?
don't. I don't want to accidentally see something. Nope.
Hmm.
I'm
And I don't know, he's doing everything the opposite of what a person that wanted to make something work well would do. So I'm not, there must be some other agenda. So, but nonetheless, I just I can vouch for threads. It's been decent. And it's also, there's not, it had, the banter had gotten kind of ugly on Twitter. You get snarky and stuff, but with threads it's kinder and gentler, and same on Post, same on Blue Sky, same thing, friendlier, nicer, moderation. There's a lot of moderation. You can report people, you can block them. On threads you can even hide, and that means it will hide that person for everyone on that comment thread, which is awesome. So, and Keith Edwards, I don't know if you follow Keith Edwards. Do you follow? He's a Democratic strategist, but he's funny as hell. Oh my God, he's so funny. I love him so much. He started doing, I thought about it, but and I did it like a couple weeks ago, but he's way bigger an account than mine. So he talked about Follow Friday. And so he's been doing Follow Friday. So I'm doing Follow Friday because I think that's a great way to get to people, to know new people that you don't know.
That was very helpful for me 10 years ago when I first
Me
joined
too.
Twitter.
Yep.
It gave me a way to find new people to search. Someone that I follow and I agree with a lot of the things and I like their stuff says, hey, you may like this person also. I'd click over and check it out. And most of the time I'd end up following. So yeah, that's how I built up who I was following back in the early days. So that was brilliant to bring that back, Kathi.
Yeah, I loved it. So yay. So
Speaking of vouching, we'll switch gears a little bit and go into something a little more. That was good, but vouching is always fun to do, right? Because you always like to make recommendations. Follow Friday is a recommendation, and it's really cool to say, hey, you may like this, and then hear back from the person, you know what, thanks for that recommendation, because I really do like that person. That's
yeah,
the whole motivation behind networking, right? Is
it's
that
the
feeling.
whole thing. And
So let's share something.
we took it from that to in person. Even remember, in person meeting, like being on Twitter and then doing like tweet ups, and there was things
Yes.
called jellies, and it was great. And then the 140 conference, it just, that's what it was about. But it's not like that. But let's bring it back. Let's bring it back, threads.
Yes.
Anyway, go ahead, you were going to say.
Well, I want to make a recommendation.
Oh,
Even though we talk about music all the time, this is a reading recommendation, but it's about music. So that's the tie into music. I was so excited when I read the intro to this book, and I pre-bought it on the pre-sale. It's a book called The Art of Darkness, The History of Goth. And I've said before, I hate the word goth when it's used to describe a music scene, because in that scene, the artists didn't really consider them, they didn't call themselves goth. Nobody set out to be a goth musician, artist, whatever. But it's an accepted term for a genre, so I'm okay with it. John Robb is the author. He was a bass player in a punk band in the late 70s or early 80s, but then he transitioned into journalism. He's written for everyone. He moderates a website called Louder Than War about music, and it's just, he's been someone I've followed for a long time. So this book, it's like 3 inches thick. I mean, it's a monster, but I'm not even all the way through it, and I've had it for over a week now, and I read it. I'm like ferociously reading this thing, clawing my way through it. But it's there's so much great information, and I'll try to not go on forever. But he draws the lines from the original Goths. I mean, the invaders of Rome, the Goth tribes that sacked Rome and brought down the biggest empire the world had ever known to that time. He draws the line from there through history to Jim Morrison, to Iggy Pop, and Ian Curtis. But he makes it make sense. When you're reading it, you're like, I get that. I can see that. Sure. Okay. Go on. And then he goes into breaking down. He has chapters on each specific, a chapter on Joy Division, a chapter on Bauhaus, a chapter on Susie. And as big a fan of Susie as I am, I did actually learn some new things about Susie that I didn't know. I will admit that. There was a time when I would have said, you can't tell me anything about Susie I don't already know. But reading
He's
the book,
talking
I
about
was like,
Susie and the Banshees, by the way.
yeah, Susie Sue for Susie and the Banshees.
And you have to remember, most people don't know what you're talking about.
That's true. Yeah, you do.
I do.
But yes, these are bands.
What else does?
English bands coming out of the 77 to 87, when we call that new wave period, right? They made the transition from punk into a different style of music, and a lot of it had a darker theme, not necessarily like dark or bad, but there was just kind of a mood to the music that you felt. When I listen to Bauhaus, there's no like happy songs Bauhaus did, but that doesn't mean they're bad songs. It's just a mood. Bauhaus is best listened to in a dark environment, and it's a really good atmosphere, but it's dark. There's no way you can get around it. Sisters of Mercy, so many other bands, Killing Joke, that fit into this group, but not necessarily a mold, because each one of them is so specifically different, and they have their unique differences, and he really encapsulates those differences and the history, the backstories, the parts that I love, which is why, growing up listening to radio here in Southern California, it wasn't just hearing the songs, it was hearing the DJs like, Doug the Slug and Rodney on the Rock, right? These guys that knew all these little facets of the songs. And they wouldn't tell you stuff about each and every song, but once in a while he'd say, and that was such and such by this band. This guy actually was in a band with these guys before. And those little stories I used to live for, the connection between like Ultravox and Human League, right? Heaven 17. There's all this like mixing and matching of members that it's just fascinating to me. And then, of course, now we have like wiki pages. You can go learn all that stuff. But back in the day, you didn't have shit. You bought a cassette, there was some liner notes with the lyrics, but you didn't know who these guys had played with, who they started with. You had to really put the research into it. So those DJ stories were awesome little nuggets that I got. And that's basically what I could say this whole book is just all those stories and that information of who got to where, how we got there. There's a huge chapter on one of your favorites, Adamant. And I will say, I knew all of it, but it was still good to read it. I know his story too well. But it's a really, really great book. I will recommend it. We vouch for Threads. It's a great place to be. So if you're not already on Threads, please jump on Threads. And when you do, make sure you follow Kathi Cruz and Mike the Car Guy. And if you like to read, if you like music, I highly suggest going out and getting The Art of Darkness, The History of Goth by John Robb.
Okay, very good. Well, my contribution is I was just tooling around on YouTube, and have you noticed there's way more ads on there lately? But anyway.
Oh yeah.
I don't know why Rick Nelson turned up in my feed, and he was on a show called Ozzie and Harriet. He was a little kid, and he had a brother named David, and they were like a real family, but they were on TV, and kind of like the first reality show, right? But I think it was scripted. But anyway, so when I saw him, I thought, oh my God, I to this minute I can't remember exactly, But what I do remember of this event was Rick Nelson and the Stone Canyon Band died in a plane crash, and it was on New Year's Eve. I remember that. And it was in 1985. And so not too many days later, maybe a couple weeks later, there was a quote unquote benefit for Ricky Nelson at Club Lingerie. And that was a club that was on Sunset, and it was a place I went a lot. And it had like the stage and stuff, which was super small, like the Roxy, like that size. And then they had like another room that had a taller ceiling it was more like a bar, like a traditional bar. And then they had even an upstairs area where you could like hang out. But it just came in my memory. I hadn't thought about it for a long time. And I was like searching for like if there's anything on Google for like Club Lingerie, Rick Nelson Memorial. And of course there was nothing, but there was one website that was about Club Lingerie, and they actually had comments available on some of the posts. And so there was just one that people were talking about just Club Lingerie in general. And I said, hey, does anybody remember a memorial for Rick Nelson in the plane crash at all? I think it seems like I know Chris Isaak was there, and I know Chuck E. Weiss was there. X could have been there, but I don't think so. But I can't remember who else was there. But it was just a really cool night. It was just, everybody was super sad, but it was just a somber, but like coming together.
Yeah.
And I'm getting it mixed up too, because there was another memorial for Stevie Ray Vaughan when he got killed in a plane crash too. And I don't remember when that was either, but I remember when the Rick Nelson was, but it had to be January of '86. But Stevie Ray Vaughan, but he had a brother that was like on the Fabulous Thunderbirds, I want to say, and they were there. But I'm getting it mixed up because I went there so many times and I don't really remember. But so anyway, so I commented, I said, hey, does anybody remember? And so let's see if somebody comments. Maybe they will.
Super cool.
Yeah, that'd be awesome if somebody did, because it would help my memory to remember it. But also it'd be nice because there were people like, I was a bouncer in like '84, and I saw, a Courtney Love and Kurt Cobain there in like '93, and it was great. So, and there's a lot of videos with Kurt and Courtney singing together at Club Lingerie. So, really? Yeah, worth checking those out. So, makes you wish that the people had phones then, because there would be a lot more video.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. But the sound is awesome. And
think of how many cool things we've attended in that scene that would have been nice to have some pictures or some video from. Just, it's super cool. I remember searching out a local Southern California band called Donkey Show. Sounds horrible, but it was a ska band in the early to mid '80s, and there's like nothing out there, but there is one really, really grainy video, and I know I was there. I'm like, holy shit! I was in that audio. I saw this. I know exactly what this whole thing, and that was super cool. But it would have been so nice to have like actual pictures and actual video and stuff. So
yeah, I was at the Roxy when the Stray Cats came to America. Well, they were from America, but because they were more popular in England, and everyone thought they were English. But they came here. It was their first gig at the Roxy. I wish I would have had that. I wish I had that video and more video. The Mask, like there's no video of hardly. There's photos, but no video. The Mask Club, and what other clubs, man? There were so many like awesome things. The Country Club. Remember that Country Club out in the Valley? That was Oingo Boingo, The Damned. Oh gosh, Squeeze. Yeah. Just wish I would have had like a phone back then, but
right.
Yeah.
We both.
Yep.
All right, my friend, I'm going to have to bounce. I know you've got stuff to do. Thank you for listening in, everybody out there that's paying attention. We appreciate it very, very much.
Yep. And if you want more of me, you can sign up for my newsletter. There will be a link in the show notes.
I highly recommend it
every week. Usually on Tuesday, sometimes on Wednesday. It just depends. If there's a holiday, for sure, it's going to be on Wednesday, but a holiday on Monday. But Just kind of depends, because you know we're juggling a lot of things here, Mike. But yeah, I just yeah, sometimes I have things to say, and
usually they're pretty good too. So definitely sign up for that newsletter and
yeah,
come back
like my
to.
shakedown. Remember my shakedown with the friggin' companies with these stock photos. Oh my God, beware. If you want to know all about stock photos and licenses, my latest one is, and if you want it, email me and I'll send it to you, because I did a deep dive after getting, of course I was fine, but it was just, it's concerning for, like, I can just see how it's going to be concerning. So, all right, well, that's it for this week. So we'll see you guys in a couple weeks. Right, Mike?
Yes, ma'am.
And be good. And we'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.
Bye for now.